That's amazing.
I'd like to call the July 10th meeting of the Board of Adjustments to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Gallagher, Spranger.
Here.
Tansey.
Here.
Tomberg.
Yes.
Vermillion.
Here.
The Board of Adjustment is a 5-member board appointed by the mayor. It is the responsibility of the board to interpret the city's zoning ordinance as it applies to special uses and variances. Public hearings are held monthly after each board member has had the opportunity to visit the site in question. A decision regarding the request will usually be made at the public hearing meeting. So we were all sent the copy of the minutes of the March 13th, 2025 meeting. I would like to entertain a motion to approve these minutes as submitted. No changes, anyone?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried for the minutes of the meeting on March 13th, 2025. All right, we have one case tonight. It is case 24-027- variance of 3149 Field Psych Drive. It's zoned A1. The variance to increase the allowable size of an accessory building from 834 square feet to 1,600 square feet, and to increase the allowable height of an accessory building measured from mid-gable from 15 to 19 feet, submitted by Thomas and Samantha Conger. Is there an affidavit of publication? Is there a staff report?
Yep. We'll turn it over to our,
Before we do the staff report, I think Chris just wanted to kind of talk about this
Oh, we're
recently change we've had, real couple sentences on that.
Sure.
In state law, I should say.
Excellent.
Just wanted to give you a couple words on that.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh, yeah, thank you, and I'm pleased to be here. So it's, we just wanted to give a little bit of a summary of some legislation that was passed recently that affects variances, which is obviously one of the main things that this board hears. In my opinion, just from my seat in the House, I think it was a good, some good legislation that does clarify some distinctions between use variances and area or dimension variances. So I'll just kind of give a little bit of history of this, and I don't want to take too long, but it might give some flavor to the case tonight. So as you all know, but as if anybody's watching, variances are just an authorization to do something that the zoning ordinance does not allow. And there are generally two types of variances. There are use variances and there are area or dimensional variances, which really affect the kind of bulk standards of the zoning ordinance. Use variances are not common because typically if there's somebody who wants to do something in a zoning district that isn't allowed, we would say, well, you should just rezone that property. There might be some rare circumstances where a use variance would be more appropriate if the rezoning, for instance, would result in a spot zoning sort of situation. But for the most part, use variances are not typical. The state law, Iowa Code Chapter 414, just deals with variances before this legislation, all the same. And the standard was essentially unnecessary hardship was what needed to be shown in order for the variance to be approved. And that term, unnecessary hardship, has had a lot of difficulties as I think all boards of adjustment throughout the state have seen. And so that term was given additional definition by the Supreme Court, the Iowa Supreme Court. There were really three elements to that. The one is a lack of reasonable return, which is really the hardest one because you had to show that you couldn't use your property and get any return monetarily without this variance. It wasn't just that, you know, the value would be diminished. It was really a hard standard. And then there were some other standards, the unique circumstances that essentially it couldn't be something that the landowner did that caused this variance to be required, and also that the variance wouldn't change the essential characteristics of the neighborhood. So there were kind of three parts to what unnecessary hardship meant. Interestingly, the Iowa Code did not have those three elements in the code. It was just case law. However, our zoning ordinance did put those three elements we did codify those three elements from the Supreme Court into our zoning ordinance. And so that's where we were. The legislation was then, as Taylor had indicated earlier, that it's kind of been kicked around for a number of years to kind of deal with the fact that variances are commonly approved, but the unnecessary hardship definition is just difficult. And so what this legislation did is really add a new subsection to Iowa Code Chapter 414.12 that relates to area or dimensional variances. They did, they gave a definition to what an area or dimensional variance is, and by way of example, requirements for minimum lot size, setbacks, yard widths, height, bulk, sidewalks, fencing, signage, or off-street parking are some examples of what an area or dimensional variance would be. And if that is a type of variance that is being requested, the standard is different. So instead of unnecessary hardship, it's practical difficulties would be faced by the applicant that are unique to the property and not self-created and would not significantly alter the essential character of the neighborhood. So what they essentially did was they took out the lack of reasonable return aspect of unnecessary hardship. They eliminated that for area or dimensional variances. They left the unique, that it was something that was unique to the property that wasn't self-created by the applicant, and that the variance wouldn't create, wouldn't alter the essential characteristics of the neighborhood. So they kind of created a lesser standard for these types of variances. And they also then codified those two elements of the previously just sort of case law standard. So I think in summary, I would say when you do get a request for a variance, one thing would be to determine what kind of variance is this. Is it a use variance or is it an area or dimensional variance that's being requested? There will be times, I suspect, that it might be harder to determine. That will be one thing that will need to be vetted, is just sort of what kind of variance is being requested here, because now the code distinguishes these two types, and it has sort of two standards depending on which one it is. But I do think that for the most part, most cities deal with more area or dimensional variances than with use variances. So it is a different standard for those. I think, for number one, as we're going through the zoning ordinance rewrite, we will then codify into our zoning ordinance this new law, but it is on the books in Iowa law, so I think we would need to follow it here. And I would say the staff report here was done very well, so kudos to Alyssa. That was very good, and she did indicate in her staff report the new standard. So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of my perspective on it. I know that Taylor and Mark and the whole team has already updated you and gave you a good summary from the Iowa State Extension on this issue. And certainly happy to answer any questions tonight or in the future. So.
Does anybody have any questions?
Nope.
No, for Chris? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
So on to the staff report. Alyssa?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So this is case 25027, a dimensional variance request at 3149 Fieldside Drive. So as you mentioned before, the applicants are Thomas and Samantha Conger, and their request is to increase the allowable size and height of an accessory structure, which in this case is a 40 by 40 proposed garage. The lot is located just west of Devils Glen Road and north of 53rd Avenue. And the reasons provided by the applicants to grant this variance is denial from contractors to connect new construction to the old existing structure that was built over 100 years ago, as well as an increased need for storage due to limited basement accessibility and an increase in cars, so enclosed vehicle storage. The future land use map designates this area as neighborhood light, which is consistent with areas to the north and to the west. And currently it is zoned A2, which is rural residential, which is consistent with the future land use map. The proposed garage would be consistent with the architectural character of the home in the neighborhood, and the applicants provided an elevation drawing kind of depicting what this garage would look like on the property. The plot itself is 1.27 acres in size with the main residential building built in 1900. The total coverage footprint is 1,880 square feet, and they also have an existing garage, 24 by 24 feet, to the west of the residential building that connects their driveway to Fieldside Drive. The proposed garage would be located just southwest of the main building, and this image is kind of a general representation of their lot and showing where exactly the 40 by 40 garage would be located, and all required setbacks would be maintained. So they are requesting two variances, both referring to section 1111A9. So first, the zoning code allows for a maximum height of 15 feet, and the applicants are proposing 19 feet for their garage. And in the same section refers to the maximum size of the accessory building, and in this specific case, it cannot exceed 75% of the building coverage area of the main residential structure. And so I wrote out the math, so I'll kind of walk you through. So the total coverage footprint, which I mentioned before, was 1,880 square feet times 75%, which is 1,410. That is the remaining square footage for accessory buildings. But since they have an existing garage there already, you have to subtract that, which is 576 square feet, leaving 834 square feet left over. And so the applicants want to build a 1,600 square foot garage. So they're requesting 766 additional square feet. Something also to mention is that the parcel size adequately supports the safe accommodation of a structure to this scale. The lot is more than 3 times the minimum lot size under the A2 zoning code. So their 1.27 acre sized lot is over 55,000 square feet compared to the 15,000 square feet minimum for A2 zoning. And then I just included a few cases that were approved in the past, matching larger garage ratios to larger lots in the A2 district, all of which were approved. And given the evidence provided in the analysis, the staff concludes that the applicants are experiencing practical difficulties and unique circumstances as per Iowa's new variance law. The old age of the home and large lot size is unique to the property, and the proposed garage would not significantly alter the essential character of the neighborhood, since there are other similar structures common in A2 districts. So the staff recommends, the Board of Adjustment recommend approval of the variance for the proposed accessory building at 3149 Fieldside Drive. Are there any questions?
Any questions, anyone?
Is the desire for 19 feet because they want a second story in there?
There was no plan to.
I believe the applicants indicated they'd use it for rafter storage.
Okay,
Yep.
And I apologize, I said it was zoned A1 and it is A2. I noticed that. So correct me. All right. Is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of this request?
We support the request, obviously, and I did want to say, we agree that the staff report was very nicely written.
Excellent. All right, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this request? Seeing none. So is there any other further board discussion?
I have none.
None? No? All right. Anyone want to entertain a motion?
I will.
Madam Chairwoman, I would just note, we also did receive correspondence and
Oh, I'm
filed
sorry,
it
the
in
email.
support of the application.
Yes, the email we received was in favor, saying that they were not opposed. So, okay. Now the motion?
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve case 25-027 for the variance to allow the, I think it was two variances?
For the
Correct, yeah,
size
variance
and the
for
The
height.
size and the height.
Yeah.
size.
There you go. Thank you, sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. With no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And so moved. All right. So that is the only thing on the docket tonight. So with that, the meeting is adjourned.